Welcome everyone back to another episode of Q&A with Sharon's son George. I was my mother's caregiver after she was diagnosed with Parkinson's disease. Sadly, she passed on 1/1/2020, so we started Together for Sharon.com in her memory and to advocate today for a cure for all those still battling PD and their families because no one is ever alone in this fight for a cure. Today's guest is someone who inspires me, and I kind of say that a lot, but she is not just someone who's advocating, she's actually literally getting out there and doing the research to change lives. I myself am a researcher, but not in the area of this Parkinson's disease. And I think we need not just more of my guests, but she's truly leading the way and a hero to so many. So I want to welcome the doctor to the show.
Thank you so much, George.
Thanks. It's really great to have you here. And I love that we have the ability now to really work together globally because this fight is not just something in Australia or not just something in the UK or not just something in the US. I feel that we have to be a family in this fight, and together our voices are so much stronger. So maybe you can start by telling the listeners a little bit about your background.
Yeah, thank you. So I'm originally from the north of England. I'm a neurologist, so a brain doctor, and I specialise in the diagnosis and management of Parkinson's. I moved over to Australia about 6 years ago. And really my involvement with Parkinson's, as well as being a doctor and managing lots of people throughout the course of their condition, I'm also a great believer that we must do good research to find new treatments and better ways of managing Parkinson's. But I'm also a great believer that we need to educate. In terms of that, I mean, educate the health professionals in particular, uh, especially those that are not specialists in Parkinson's. I'm thinking about GPs and general physicians, because I think it's all of our responsibility to help people with Parkinson's. And the other thing that I do is a lot of advocacy work and community engagement work. So I'm part of a community advisory group with lots of people with Parkinson's, as well as doctors and researchers and so on. So, you know, the work you do, George, is amazing. And I'm a great believer that we've got to all work together.
And I really appreciate it. And I think one thing we've been shifting on the show too, which I love, is having scientists, researchers, doctors like yourself, because, it's easy. I mean, it's not easy, but I spend 24/7, advocating, but I'm not the one I'm also a researcher, but not I'm more in police and criminal justice, but I'm not involved. I never did well in the medicine science courses, so I ended up becoming a cop, lawyer, and professor, but not in this area. And this is one area that fascinates me as an educator, as someone, as a student for life, a life student. But I think we need more individuals like yourself on the show because I think you're going to bring some important news, work, and research to the Parkinson's world that I can't really provide. And it's really, again, such an honor to have you here. And I hope one day to be able to visit Australia. Right now, it's not that easy, but we always, we love all the shows and we watch Amazing Race. And that one, every time they're in Australia, I'm so jealous. But that's, again, the great thing about technology, whereas 10 years ago, we wouldn't have had a show, we wouldn't have even probably met. And that's one thing I think brings awareness that we are able to finally do that together. Is there a specific research you're currently working on that you can share? I know sometimes it's top secret, so I don't want you to let any secrets out.
Yeah, no, definitely no top secrets. So a lot of my research in the UK was around clinical trials, which is super important because it means that people with Parkinson's have the opportunity to try new treatments before they come to market. So we did a lot of phase 3 randomized control trials. Since I've moved to Australia, I've done a lot more work actually with something called computer vision and artificial intelligence methods. And really, if I was to tell you a brief story, I think as a clinician, when I look at people with Parkinson's, particularly in the really early stages where it can be a little bit hard to diagnose sometimes, I ask them to do tests like tapping their fingers against their thumb, and I'm looking at the speed and the rhythm of that movement. But in all honesty, we know that as doctors, we all see slightly different things because we're human. So I'm been doing a lot of work research around trying to develop more precise methods of measuring movement. And I think most of us would have one of these in our pocket, a mobile phone. And what we're using is the camera on the back of the phone to video record people when they do these sorts of movements. And then it extracts features from that movement. So it will tell us precisely, this is the speed, this is the amplitude, this is the rhythm. And why is that important? Well, it's really important around the time of diagnosis, because we can say, look, that is slower than we'd expect, and that's more in the range of Parkinson's. But the other really important part is around monitoring. So when people try new treatment, sometimes it can be hard to say, is it working, or how much is it working, particularly over time. And again, if we can quantify movements more accurately, I think this will really bring a precision to Parkinson's that we currently lack a little bit. And you might have heard a lot about personalized treatments for Parkinson's. So that's all around saying, rather than giving the same tablets to everyone, and in some people they work really well and other people not so well, let's try and precisely measure different sorts of features in Parkinson's so that we can really tailor specific treatments at specific groups of people with Parkinson's. So a lot of my research is around sort of bringing together computer science with neurology to develop new tools.
It's amazing to see how technology is used for the better. Unfortunately, a lot of the media in the US only shows the poor, the negative media coverage, and we need more on the positive. But yeah, as you speak and all the things you're doing does inspire me, and really is one of the reasons that drives me to keep pushing. Because with individuals like you and your profession, I feel like the cure is not just distant future. It's coming closer every day. So I thank you for all your work. What are some of the stigmas that you think? I find this fascinating because obviously in the US, it used to be known as the elderly man disease, which is completely wrong because now more and more individuals younger have on young onset. We also have, I've concentrated a lot on females with Parkinson's, women with Parkinson's, because there's a lot of issues that people aren't aware of. And there are so many out there, even listening now, I believe, who are going through this and feel alone. That's one reason we have the show. Obviously, we don't want money, we don't accept it. I'll send it back or donate it to other organizations. But I just think that I was felt alone as a caregiver when my mother was battling. And my mother never met somebody with Parkinson's in 15 years because we just didn't know anyone was out there and we really didn't have the support in the community. There is a lot more again today, so it's not anyone's fault. But I was just curious again, some of the areas that you think we can get rid of that false stigma.
Yeah, such an important question, George. And I think there is still a belief in the general public that only old white men develop Parkinson's. And that if you're not in that category, it has been shown, particularly say younger females, for example, that their time to diagnosis is longer. And again, I think that's because us as health professionals have a certain bias. And we don't expect young women to walk through our door and be diagnosed with Parkinson's. So I think, again, going back to education, there's a lot of education we need to do amongst the general public, but also amongst health professionals to really say, look, this condition, we don't know why, but it's doubled in prevalence over the last 20 years. And as you mentioned, that is not just older adults. There are younger people, and particularly women, that are developing Parkinson's. I think stigma is a really big issue. And when I diagnose people with Parkinson's, it's a very common thing that people don't want to tell other people about their diagnosis. And I think I hugely respect that. It's a very private thing. But what I do see is that people who continue to not tell other people, they become quite isolated, quite lonely, and they carry that burden, which gives additional pressure to managing the condition. And so I gently, walk alongside people that have just been diagnosed. I give them time. But over the months, I'll say to them, how's about maybe going to a group where you meet other people? Or would it be okay if I connected you just on a one-to-one with someone? And nearly always people come back and say, do you know, that was the best thing you ever did. It was as good as the tablets you gave me, because it just gives us that human connection. And I think we've got to remember that with Parkinson's, we're human. The dopaminergic medications treat chemicals in our brain and make us move better. But actually to feel better, to feel connected and have that social connectedness, I think we need to be interacting with other humans. I wrote a paper with somebody with Parkinson's, or two people with Parkinson's, and it was called the Parkinson's Puzzle Box. And it was
Mhm.
very much about young women in particular, and the stigma and the sort of additional aspects of Parkinson's that are challenging for young women to deal with. And that's open access, so any of your listeners can go and have a look for that on Google. And the other thing that we're doing, George, is we've developed this thing called the Massive Open Online Course, which has the acronym MOOC, MOOC. And this very much is a global free course trying to educate people and talk about these sorts of issues around stigma and supporting each other. Because I don't think giving medicines to people with Parkinson's is the whole picture. It's part of it. But I think as a community and as the public, we need to have more awareness of the challenges that people with Parkinson's are facing.
Thank you. And is there something specific in your life before you went into the field that might have affected you, to go into the world of Parkinson's and medicine and also in awareness, or was it just that, you had patients and that's what touched your heart?
Yeah, it's a great question. I think as a neurologist, I was, trained up to manage all sorts of neurological conditions, multiple sclerosis, stroke, headache, and Parkinson's. But I think I did feel a connection to people with Parkinson's. And one of the privileges of being a doctor managing Parkinson's is that you really get to know your patient. We don't discharge them. We offer follow-up throughout the course of that condition. And I think it is a privilege to walk alongside somebody who has Parkinson's, get to know their family, get to know what's important to them. And professionally, I found that very satisfying. But I also felt that my skills were very aligned with that, in terms of connecting with the person, and adapting my style to different people. Some of my patients are like, just give it me straight, Jane, tell me what I need to do. And I can be very blunt and direct with them. But others are very anxious and don't want to know too much. And I've got to tailor my consultation style for those people as well. So I really enjoy that communication and connection aspect, in terms of managing people with Parkinson's. But I also really enjoy seeing how satisfying it is when medications are working well or interventions are working well. And when I diagnose somebody with Parkinson's, I'll often say to them, look, I think next time you come back, you will actually feel better. Although this is a diagnosis you didn't want to hear, you've had this condition now for several years. You've now been diagnosed, and we can now get you on the right treatment. And again, many people will come back 3-4 months later and say, gosh, I feel 10 years younger, because I'm now on the right treatment.
It's a beautiful feeling. The next area I wanted to ask about, which is something I might not want an answer myself, is you're doing a lot of research now in the area of sleep. I don't sleep. Part of the night, I mean, obviously, I miss my mother. She was my best friend, and she lost her battle. But we do this in her memory and all those we've lost due to Parkinson. But there are many nights I don't sleep. I've been to medical doctors, they were really couldn't figure it out. But maybe you could talk a little bit about Parkinson's and sleep and some of the research that you're doing now. I think that it's really incredible and also very important.
Yeah, I mean, sleep is very intricately connected to Parkinson's. So people with Parkinson's will describe a lot of different sleep symptoms. Common symptoms will be difficulty getting to sleep or difficulty staying asleep. So often people are waking up at 2 or 3 in the morning for no obvious reason. Sometimes it's because they need to, yeah, it's a common thing that we talk about in the clinic. Sometimes it's an anxiety, which is also common in Parkinson's. It's waking people up at 2 or 3. Sometimes it's a bladder problem. Sometimes it's pain or people going off because the medications are wearing off. So we spend a lot of time talking about sleep in the Parkinson's clinic. And then in the daytime, there's also people that describe a lot of drowsiness and sleepiness, people wanting to nap and so on. So we know that the circadian rhythm, that's the sleep-wake cycle, really changes in Parkinson's. What I tend to say to people is keep as active as you can in the day. Try and do some exercise to whatever level you can. Try and interact with people, get the brain really active in the day. And that does seem to help them to allow it to be a bit more restful at night. And then there's other obvious things like don't drink caffeine before bed, don't look at your mobile phone or watch TV an hour before bed. So we're all guilty, allowing your brain to really calm down and go into that sleep phase. There are medications as well that some people can take, but I try and use those more physical methods first. The other really useful thing actually is to get lots of daylight. And sometimes I've got a grey sky behind me, and growing up in the UK, it's not always bright in the day, but getting out, allowing daylight to hit us really helps regulate that circadian rhythm. And again, making sure the room is dark at night. The research that I'm doing is around a condition called REM sleep behavior disorder, rapid eye movement sleep disorder. And we all have rapid eye movement sleep, and this is when we're dreaming. But there's a condition called REM sleep behavior disorder that occurs for about 10 to 20 years before people develop Parkinson's. And it's probably one of the first clinical signs that someone's going to go on and develop Parkinson's. And often people, when they have this, they act out their dreams. So when we dream and our eyes are darting backwards and forwards, our body is actually quite floppy. So even if we're dreaming about running, we wouldn't move. But in rapid eye movement sleep disorder, people can act their dreams out. So they start to move their arms and their legs. They might punch somebody, and they become really active at night. And that's problematic because they wake up feeling exhausted, or their bed partner gets kicked. But it's also really important for doctors to recognize that if somebody comes in with these symptoms, they're at high risk for developing Parkinson's in the future. And our research project here in Australia is all about trying to find those people, and then trying to instigate sort of what we call good brain health. So do more exercise, stop smoking, manage your blood pressure, lots of things that we know work for preventing dementia. We don't yet have the evidence to know that they prevent Parkinson's, but we're taking a pragmatic approach and saying it would make sense to try and give really good brain health to people who are at high risk of developing Parkinson's. So in a nutshell, what we're trying to do is prevent Parkinson's, and that's hugely ambitious, but I think we have to be ambitious. And it's hard to find these people, but we're now developing a group here in Tasmania, in Australia, that we know have this REM sleep behavior disorder, and we're actively getting them involved in research. I should just add finally that people with Parkinson's, about half of people with Parkinson's will also have this acting out their dreams, the REM sleep behavior disorder. And there are medications you can take, like benzodiazepines, medications to try and put you into a deeper sleep and stop that. But often we just say really simple things like put a pillow between you and your bed partner so you're not kicking them, move the bedside table away from the bed so you don't headbutt it if you start acting out your dreams. But it's increasingly recognised as one of the non-motor symptoms of Parkinson's.
I commend you and thank you for doing research. Sometimes it's important to do research that not everybody is aware of. Also, research that not everybody even wants, because if we don't explore different topics and areas, we might miss something very critical. I wanted to share a few things. This is, again, some of the beautiful work you've done. And if everybody goes to the University of Tasmania's website, you can see a lot more, which the doctor knows I can spend hours together talking about, but you'll be able to see much more in depth here on her areas of research. You might even be able to take an online class someday with her. You never know these days with I teach online around the world, so sure you can. Also, you can join her on X or Twitter. That one is obviously one that I follow very closely and share. We have to support the professor. It's very important because she's doing some incredible work. And you can also go to many websites, like you mentioned, on Google and find a lot more on some of the research and that you've done. I myself am a researcher, and I know how it's not easy. So the more support, the more we read and share all of the doctor's work, the better it's going to be for the whole entire Parkinson's community throughout the world. So I just wanted to thank you again for all that you do. And then I want to shift to the final part of the show, which is I always joke and say it's the fun part, but it's all fun. So maybe you could list, and you are allowed to, as an attorney, and in the US, not Australia, but you are allowed not to answer if you don't like a question. But can you list 3 words that describe who you are?
Oh gosh, you've thrown that one at me. Well, I'm definitely an optimist. I think you have to be optimistic and not lose hope. I think I'm compassionate, and I think I'm curious.
I love those. And is there something you might have done differently looking back the past 10 years through your medical practice or research?
Great question. I, in some ways, wished I'd believed in myself a bit more. Um, I think we all have doubts about our abilities. And as a doctor for a long time, I had research questions, but wasn't sure if I'd be a good researcher. So I was a bit afraid to try being a researcher. I was a bit afraid to fail. So I wish I'd had a really good mentor to sort of put their arm around me and say, have a go, Jane. It's not the end of the world if you fail, but you might be good at it. So I think that would probably be just the thing that I, looking back, might have wished I had.
Thanks. And we believe in you, and we're here to always remind you, and the whole Parkinson's community, I believe, would agree with me on that. So thank you. This is not, I always ask a lot of guests this, and it's an interesting and different question, but what you do is not always, fun, positive, and easy because you're dealing with individuals like my mother who struggle. So just curious who helps you, behind the scenes during times of struggle. We like to send our love and support to those who support you because I know that I wouldn't be able to be an advocate if it wasn't for my wife and my children. But I always like to bring those because, a lot of us are the face of this advocacy, but there are people behind the scenes that don't want to be the face. But without them, we wouldn't be able to do what we do. Because again, this gotta be, I imagine, I'm picturing myself in the office, but not in a bad way, but seeing, when you have to tell somebody they've just been diagnosed or seeing that it's the progress or progression is increasing, which is not a good thing. So just curious if you could talk on that.
Yeah, you're so right. And I think, the downside of being compassionate, being sensitive and caring for my patients is that we do feel things and we do feel sad and when somebody deteriorates or dies, and we do feel frustrated when things are not going as well as we hoped. And I think that can take its toll on a doctor's mental health. And I think we have to, you're right, protect ourselves and build ourselves up as well. I've got a wonderful husband and three kids that make me laugh and keep my feet on the ground and give me a hug when I need it. And listen as well when I sometimes want to share something around what I've experienced. I think the other thing is getting out in nature is good, resets the balance. And then more recently, I've started to do a boot camp down at the beach and do a little bit of boxing and get some energy flowing. So I think a combination of these things and good friends, good friends that you can have a laugh with, let your hair down and just relax a little bit. But it's such a good question, George, and I think we're often not asked that. How do we care for the carers? You're absolutely right.
Well, we send our love to your husband, the children, and the boxing group too, because we need them to also be in this fight, and we send our love to them. Who is your hero and inspiration? These are the tough questions. Barbara Walters question.
Yeah, that is a tough question. I'm not sure if I've got an answer for that one, actually. I feel I've had many heroes and inspirations throughout my life. Professionally, there's been some fabulous consultants when I was training in the UK, and I've watched how they deal and interact with patients and taken the bits of what they do and integrated it into my own way of practicing. When I see something that really works well, I'm like, gosh, I want to be like them. But I think that's been a whole combination of people. And then I think along the way, good friends can touch you very deeply and sharing their vulnerabilities with you as well. I think is actually very inspiring and allows us to be brave and be more open. So I'm probably not going to name somebody there. I think it's been a whole series of people.
That's why I love these questions because the different answers from different people. It's just every single one's unique but beautiful, and I really appreciate it. We're wrapping up soon, but this is a fun one. If you were asked to write a script about to a movie about your life story, what would you call it, and what actress would play your role?
Oh my gosh, these questions are getting even harder.
These are the tough, hard-hitting political and non-political questions.
I feel like I'm going to end up saying I don't know to a lot of these. I
That's
think
okay.
I think something around the being optimistic actually. I do feel that in myself that I'm tend to see the bright side of life, and I think that helps you get through a lot of things. And moving countries from the UK to Australia is a big upheaval. You start making new friends, start again, new job, and so on. So I think it would be something like The Eternal Optimist, something a bit cheesy like that as the title. I have no idea about the actress. You,
As
you'll have
my
you'll have to suggest someone to me.
as the listeners and people, everybody out there watching in the community, we've had some lately. The guests have been George Clooney, Brad Pitt, and I don't know about the similarity, but that's what they think. So we leave it at that.
Yeah, as
And
long as your listeners choose somebody glamorous and nice,
okay.
I'll take their suggestion.
I'm sure they will. Thank you. And I do want to again reiterate how important it is to support the doctor. All she does, please follow her on X, and she'll also add with me or share any other areas or websites, and I'll add them to the notes. So all of you can also reach out and help support her. But if you go to the University of Tasmania website, you can click the doctor's name, and you'll be able to read a lot more in depth. The final question, unfortunately, because I do say this concludes today, but I don't like to say it ends it, because I do feel when the lights, cameras, and the paparazzi leave today, that we have to continue this conversation. It doesn't really end when we shut the show. This disease is not done yet until we all join hands together around the world and continue to advocate, share this show. I don't want anything in return but a cure, because I don't want anyone to have to go through what my mother or our family has. And I swear the last thing I do is that no one is alone, but we have to reach those people, because there are people around the world, from Australia to the UK to the US, that do feel alone. I think it's unfortunately because they're not aware. So together, I think we can change that. But if you could leave the Parkinson's community today with some words of encouragement, what would they be?
Gosh, I could say so much. I think this is a really exciting area actually for the world of Parkinson's. I think the amount of research that is going on in the background is phenomenal. And the research, I believe, will lead to new treatments that will make a huge impact on people's symptoms. But what we really want are drugs or treatments that actually stop the progression of Parkinson's. I genuinely believe that will happen in my lifetime. And I think we already have evidence of some non-drug methods that can do that, such as exercise. And we're learning so much more about how to protect the brain. So I think my words of encouragement would be things are changing. There's an awful lot of money and resources going into Parkinson's. But as a doctor that sees people every day with Parkinson's, I want those treatments to get to the people living with Parkinson's right now. And I don't think we're too far off seeing really transformative management options. So I think we need to stay hopeful, stay positive, live as well as we can with this condition. Um, and as you say, George, and your work is phenomenal, let's work together as a community, a global community. That's how we'll really see change.
I really appreciate your time, friendship, and I feel the future, we're going to do a lot of great things together, but it really takes everyone listening support, because we are here for you too. I have a little message for you, doctor, and everyone listening. We love you, we support you, we care a lot about you, and you're never alone. I, along with the amazing doctor, will advocate for you, and together I feel our voices are so much stronger. And I always say I'm just getting started, because even though I'm not, when I hear your journey, all the incredible work you do, it inspires me to never give up. So I'm again just so grateful for your time today, and I do hope for many more to come. And that's why this is not a goodbye, everyone.
Thank you, George. It's been an absolute privilege to be on your show. Thank you.
Thank you, and thank you also for listening, everyone out there. This is very important, and like I said, after this ends, we need to continue to share it. The show, I'm very honest, and I don't. There's nothing to hide. I have nothing, unfortunately, left. I lost my mother, best friend to this, so there's no reason to put anything behind the shadows or the curtains, if you think about it. So really just want this to be found a cure. And that's really the moral of today, the story. But in my heart, I know now with the doctor, all the things I've learned today, and hopefully you have, that there is hope and optimism that we are going to come closer to a cure, because there's so many incredible doctors, researchers throughout the world doing this work day and night, putting their, blood, sweat, and tears. I might do that in advocacy, but I can't in the research world. So grateful for all you do. So thank you again, Doctor, and thank you everyone for listening. This has been another episode of Q&A with Sharon St. George. Please share this. Please support the doctor, all she does. And the most important thing is please keep moving and know that you're not alone, because we're out here fighting right by your side. And neither of us, I believe, will ever rest until the cure is on everyone's doorsteps throughout the world. So thanks again, everyone. We send our love, and please stay tuned for so much more to come.